a lot of the anti-DEI sentiment that I've been hearing, it's destructive. They're not trying to really create something. They're just trying to say, this is DEI. This is what I say it is, which a lot of times is widely inaccurate. It's not what it is,
Correct.
but all right, fine.
Right.
Do you? And then try to destroy it.
Hey y'all, it's Adrielle. Welcome back to another episode of DEI in 5. I am joined today by Nick Carter, who is a DEI professional who is pro-people and constantly curious, much like myself. Currently, he is finishing a soon-to-be self-published book called Pandemoirs, Stories from the Pandemic, and he is constantly looking for the next way to understand more deeply and contribute to the larger community. So, Nick, appreciate you joining me today. I'm excited for our discussion.
Yeah.
I think I posted a video, right? And you had reached out to me and you were kind of talking about this anti-DEI sentiment, which I've been kind of touching on here and there, but I thought it would be nice for us to dig a little bit deeper on what that even means. And I think it's so interesting that we're having this conversation right now because earlier this week, and hopefully I edit this video on time so it makes sense that I'm saying this week when this is published, but on Monday, May 15th, Florida's Governor DeSantis signed into law an anti-DEI, well, what was a bill, but now is a law, and it's going to go into effect on July 1st. I also talked about this earlier this week on another podcast, Leadership. So if you're not subscribed to that, please check it out. But he signed into law a bill that is going to ban DEI initiatives in public colleges in Florida. It's terrifying stuff, and it's interesting. He had the audacity to sign the bill at New College of Florida, which is also the college where earlier this year he went in, disrupted all things DEI. He pretty much like shut down the DEI team that they had there. He appointed 6 new members to the school's board of trustees, all of which are supposedly conservative allies of his. He accused the school's leadership of overemphasizing DEI, critical race theory, and gender ideology, which he characterized as, quote unquote, what a liberal arts education should be. He even told people if they want a liberal arts education, they should go to Berkeley. He was mocking the students and the faculty that were protesting during this bill signing. So there's a lot going on. And so we just wanted to highlight this whole concept and idea of these anti-DEI sentiments. And the last thing I'll add is that he refers to DEI as discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination.
Clever.
What are your thoughts?
Clever. Clever there.
Right? It is clever.
Yeah, it's one of those jokes where I forgot to laugh. The tough part about like what DeSantis is doing is just not just DeSantis. I think DeSantis is probably the more visible source of like anti-DEI sentiments, but I think a lot of people across the country may believe just as passionately as he does that it should be stopped. Some people may have just heard this, and have some of the same fears or something, may believe just a little bit less, but they're taking what he's saying as facts. Like, oh, that's what DEI stands for. I always wondered.
Yeah, it's scary, really, because I think one of the problems is that a lot of people like DEI, and I've said this a few times, DEI was not and still is not really a household concept in America. I just went to a networking event last night with some tech professionals, and just for shits and giggles, I was like explaining, I was telling people what I did, and they were like, oh, that diversity thing, okay, like what exactly is that? Like, people don't actually know. And I'm talking about people that are working in spaces where DEI is prominent. We're talking people that work at JP Morgan and like, SAP, at places like that where it is not as prevalent. So or it is prevalent.
Yeah.
Like they have DEI initiatives, apologies, but if you're not involved in them, you may not fully know what's going on. But to your point, we have DeSantis, who has all this visibility, and he's saying these things: discrimination, exclusion, indoctrination. And people who, including himself, don't actually know what our work entails and the type of things that we do. They're making assumptions, a lot of it rooted out of fear of having power taken away. I've talked about this as well. Like, there are a lot of studies around why people feel threatened and are pushing back on DEI. And so it's just really unfortunate that the spotlight is going in that direction, and that they're actually passing these bills into law now.
Yes. I think
scary stuff.
I think one of the things I've been thinking about over the past year or so, I don't know about everybody else, I have these 3 to 6 month periods where I'm just kind of thinking about one thing and then it's the next thing. But one of the things I've been thinking about is just the idea of a creative movement or creative thought, in that I'm trying to make something. You know what I mean? A lot of the anti-DEI sentiment that I've been hearing, it's destructive. They're not trying to really create something. They're just trying to say, this is DEI. This is what I say it is, which a lot of times is widely inaccurate. It's not what it is. Correct. But all right, fine.
Right.
Do you? And then try to destroy it. It's worthless. Oh, it's doing this harm and things like that. And I I disagree with you, but I still think that one, there's some value in exploring your argument, seeing are there actual good points, or these 9 out of 10 points were bad, so I'm gonna look out for that in other arguments. You know what I mean? I think there's some value in that. And then the other thing is, a big value for me is just creative discourse. And I think that if that's a big enough value in the country and companies that you work in, whatever, I wouldn't mind bad ideas so much, because if we're able to actually discuss it, at the end of that discussion, you should be able to see that idea was crap. It wasn't worth anything. I'm glad we had this discussion. You know what I mean? But we don't discuss well in this country at all. We have debates where people are planning months in advance. They got the makeup team. Right. They got quick one-liners. Oh, that was funny. It wasn't prepared by him. Right. It wasn't his joke. It's all fake.
Right.
So I think we could discuss better. And my hope is that we have people like DeSantis going in this direction where they're kind of demonizing DEI and making their own definitions of it more prominent. My hope is that if we could create more creative discussions where we're trying to create a solution, that value will override some of the drivel that's just coming out of who knows what DeSantis is motivated by with this. Maybe there's a nugget of actual genuine emotion or something he's reacting from, but I think
no. I mean, I've been following this for a minute, so I think a couple of things, right? I think one issue, going to your point of our frequent desire to debate in this country, one of the biggest issues is that we go into, like you said, we're going into these conversations to debate. There's rarely an approach in which we go into conversations with other people with the intent to listen and try to hear the other side, not necessarily be changed by what you're hearing. And that's the issue, is we're constantly trying to get the other person to see our side and to pivot perspectives, versus going into it and trying to have a conversation where it's okay, help me understand where you're coming from. Why do you think this? There's really no, from our viewpoint in the media, for the average person, there's no clear understanding of why is DeSantis doing this? From my perspective of digging into this, it seems he's doing this because he thinks it's going to bring in his conservative supporters so he can run for president. Trump's already got that in the bag from what we've seen. Like, the man was just on CNN doing a whole town hall. CNN, which is a whole nother conversation. But DeSantis, we don't see you on CNN.
Just speak to the fear.
And yeah, and it you know, the whole sentiment with a lot of Republicans is like going after this idea of freedom, and yet you are sitting here banning DEI. They don't even want people to have conversations about DEI. So to your point of like trying to think of like creative ideas and things like that, laws like this are going to shut all of that down. This is like pretty much blocking freedom of speech and like students' right to be educated, to learn something, not even to decide on where they stand because they can't have the conversations.
Right.
You're pretty much saying you can't even come in and try to learn something you're interested in. Go somewhere else. This isn't.
That's the other thing. Like, creative discourse, yes, and also transparency. You know, like, who's deciding what is divisive? Why is it divisive? What's your thought process? You know, like, I think that is, you know, transparency is leadership's love letter to the people. It's like, you're there on that platform, so prove that you're serving the people. You know, you're not just there for, like, you weren't. I don't know. Like, you're not just there to be there. Like, at some point, we used to call these people public servants. You know, they started becoming private servants. You know, private interests and stuff. That sounds pretty bad, but anyway, you know, like, it got away from that. And I think the transparency, like, we don't talk enough about values in this country, you know, to the point where, like, the value is more important than the person, you know, like I voted for Barack Obama, but it's a different conversation if you're saying, like, not, I think Barack Obama is the best person. It's a different conversation if you're saying Barack Obama exhibits the values that are best for the country, and that's why we're electing him. Like, where is the CNN, or I won't say Fox, but where's the CNN or like any station that is carrying out a values-led conversation about processing the world we're living in? I don't know, you know.
I don't know that it exists. I don't know that it exists. I was reading, I haven't fully caught up on it, but there was an article talking about just like the shifts that are happening with leadership at CNN, and I'm just curious to know what's going on there. But to your point, you know, there was also a study that was recently published, and they said only 21% of employees trust their leaders. I'd be curious to see what that looks like if we're just talking about overall country leadership and like looking at governments and like satisfaction there. I haven't really looked into that, but you're right. Like, transparency is missing. Yeah. And the study also talked about like 3 components that leaders really need to have to try to rebuild that. And part of it was like communication, which includes transparency. Also like inspiring people and having confidence in the future, which doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. It's like everybody's just kind of like one of those car dealership inflatables, and they're like, we don't know what's going on. Like, truly, it feels that way. I'm like, this government has no sense. And especially now, because we're at this place where technology is moving so quickly, and our government was not designed to accommodate and support a society where we're being driven by things like AI, and there's fake images, fake songs, fake everything.
Yeah.
And so I think they're all scrambling. And then the other piece is directly tied to that. Leaders need to lead through change and support change, and they're struggling themselves. So it's like there's not leadership is just not.
Yeah, because it's like, ooh,
it's not leadering.
Right. Like, change is bad because it's going to affect my ability to maintain control. You know?
Yeah.
You know, the whole, like, there was a wave across the country about, like, going back to work, you know, mandatory or stuff like that. It's like, I get that if you're running the country, running the company, maybe the country too, you want things to stay more or less the same because you get that validation and that feedback, but culture changes. It moves. Like it's like trying to fix a river in one place. That's not how this works. It's not how it works.
Right.
If you can't adapt,
Right.
at some point you are doing a disservice to the people that report to you or depend on you for leadership. If you can't adapt, like, you're not aligning with what life is,
Right. And your company isn't going to stay afloat because you need those people
and they gonna bounce
to operate, and they're ready to dip. They'll find somewhere else that's going to accommodate what they need. Absolutely. Definitely. Well, there's a lot going on. I'm going to add a link to the description. There's actually an anti-DEI legislation tracker, which I'm going to add the link to. But this whole movement that is impacting colleges and universities is not unique to Florida. We've also seen it in Texas with Governor Abbott, who has been introducing different bills. That's been an interesting one to follow too, because I remember reading an article where private companies were calling their local government like, okay, how does this impact us? So while we are talking about these anti-DEI movements within, again, the education system, it's only a matter of time before it has snowball effects. There's also an article on LinkedIn talking about how a lot of people are dissatisfied with the DEI efforts being made within their organization. So there you have it. It's scary all the way around. But I think, as scary as it is, I think there's still opportunity for us to approach DEI in a different way. And I think we just have to get people to remain open to that. And that all starts with mutual understanding and shared language. If I say DEI is diversity, equity, inclusion, but you say it's discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination, we have a problem. We can't have a conversation at all because we're not speaking the same language, right? We're not understanding the terms the same. And so I think that is the starting point at the end of the day, regardless of if we believe the same things or even want it to be a thing. Conversations need to be had, and there needs to be that space of alignment. So I'll add some more resources for anyone that's been following or is interested in learning more about this. Any final thoughts, things you want to plug for yourself, things you want the people to know?
Plug wise, I'm really excited for the Panda Mars book we mentioned. I had the chance to interview a lot of people about their different kind of a diverse collection of experiences in the pandemic. So I wanted to put that out. One, to get it out, and then two, all these other ideas in my head. Like, I gotta finish that one to get to the other ones.
I feel you. That's me all the time.
Final thoughts. I came to this from watching one of your videos. Appreciate what you do, and a lot of the gems that you drop. I think honest discussion is the thing that'll save us. A lot of people think it's getting rid of the bad guys, insert bad guys. Is it black people? Is it Mexicans? Is it like this, that, people that are not me, of course, are the bad guys. I think it's just having honest conversations and like, what can I learn? What can I pick up? What can I adjust in my own thinking? And I think it's pretty good platform. It's a seed for that. So thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you joining. All right, y'all, check out the description below for all the links. Add a comment. Let us know what you think about this whole anti-DEI movement, and we'll be back soon. All right, y'all. Till later.